Alright folks, I know it's been a while since my last upload, but I'm back, and in today's video I'm going to share my overall thoughts after completing Final Fantasy XVI. As you guys can probably tell by the title of this video, I pretty much did everything that the game had to offer. Not only did I complete the game once, but I did it twice for the Platinum Trophy, so I thought now might be a good opportunity to share my overall thoughts. It has been now 3 months since the game was released, but I think I've finally managed to digest my thoughts, and let me just start off by saying that Final Fantasy XVI is a great entry in the series, despite taking a radical direction with its gameplay. I know that there are some people who are not happy with Final Fantasy XVI being a very action-heavy game, but that didn't bother me as much. Despite the lack of RPG elements in the combat department, it still felt like a Final Fantasy game, in particular when it came to the story, the characters, and the world of Final Fantasy XVI. Now, FF16 is set in a world called Valisthea, which is the land home of the Mother Crystals. These are ginormous crystals that bestow the land with magic called ether, and this ether is a very important resource used for everything from generating heat to wind, water, and so on. It is a finite resource and a resource that nations are willing to go to war for, and it is here that we get to follow Clive's journey after losing his kingdom, becoming an outlaw, and getting himself involved in the conflicts between the nations of Valisthea. Now, Final Fantasy XVI was developed by Creative Business Unit 3, the team behind Final Fantasy XIV, and you can clearly tell that it was developed by them, as it is a story-focused game with a quest structure similar to Final Fantasy XIV. The first thing that comes to mind is the way they handled side quests and how much it added to the world building of Final Fantasy XVI. Especially during the second half of the game. The level of details they put into the world building is just phenomenal, and I was fully immersed in the world of Valisthea. Not only that, but there's also a really cool feature called Active Time Lore, where you can pause the game during cutscenes and read a quick summary of characters, locations, and factions involved in the cutscene. It is a fantastic feature that gives you the right amount of information, and it is a feature that I think should be in almost every RPG from here on out. Especially for those JRPGs with convoluted stories, but I digress. But yeah, I really liked the story and the dark mature setting that they were going for. Following Clive's journey from adolescence to adulthood was a really cool aspect of the story. It starts off as a revenge story, but it escalates to something much bigger, revolving around the untold secret of the world of Valisthea, and I was fully immersed. But let us switch gears and talk about the gameplay. In the last couple of years, we've seen Square shifting more and more towards an action-based gameplay. We've seen that with Final Fantasy XV, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and Final Fantasy XVI is no exception. I would even go as far as to say that the gameplay in Final Fantasy XVI, in particular when it comes to the combat, felt more like a character action game than your typical action JRPG. Yes, there are levels and stats, but they are somewhat irrelevant, and what I mean by that is that the combat mainly revolves around your execution. As long as you understand your movesets and got the timing right, then you're pretty much good to go. I remember for instance doing S-rank hunts that were almost 10 levels above me, and I was doing fine. Don't get me wrong though, they would hit like a mad truck, but once I got the timing right, I was pretty much good. There are no elemental weaknesses to expose. There is a stagger mechanic, but it is not as in-depth as the other Final Fantasy titles where you have to strategically figure out a way to stagger them. In Final Fantasy XVI, the stagger mechanic is much more streamlined, and all I had to do was just use iconic abilities that are universally effective at decreasing the opponent's stagger gauge. Combining that with combos and battle techniques like precision dodges and counters, and that was pretty much it. But that doesn't mean that the combat is bad. Despite the lack of RPG elements, I still had a lot of fun with the combat system. It was fluid, fast-paced, and it truly shined once I unlocked more abilities to play around with. There is an ability tree where you can spend points you've earned to unlock iconic abilities, and each icon provides a different playstyle. If you for instance enjoy using ranged abilities, then you might want to use Ramuh or Bahamut. Or let's say you enjoy pummeling your opponents with brute strength, then Titan might be something for you. Not only that, but you can also combine different iconic abilities to create awesome looking combos. In Final Fantasy XVI you will also engage in icon battles, and these battles are very spectacle and cinematic. At first I wasn't really sure if I would enjoy these types of battles, but it grew on me. So much so that 2 of my favorite boss battles were against Titan and Bahamut. Now there are only a handful of icon battles, so you won't be spending much time fighting as an icon, but I really enjoyed the spectacle despite being somewhat of a set piece. But yeah, I enjoyed the gameplay. My only wish was that they would have incorporated more RPG elements, like having more build diversity in terms of gear and weapons, because it is very linear and you rarely have to think about the pros and cons when it comes to equipment. And I honestly think they could have added more RPG elements while retaining the action-like combat. But overall, I think Final Fantasy XVI is a solid entry in the series, and I'm really interested to see where they will go from here. Will they release more content in the form of DLC, or will this be a standalone thing? I personally would love to see more content, perhaps a deep dive into other characters like Jill or Sid, or maybe a DLC centered around a certain icon that has gone missing. Regardless of whether they will do a DLC or not, it is still a complete experience and a great entry in the series. And that is pretty much my overall thoughts. Let me know your guys' thoughts on Final Fantasy XVI in the comment section, and consider subscribing if you're interested in RPG and JRPG related stuff. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll hopefully see you guys next time.